The Eagles had a comeback win versus the Patriots last night, but it was their 6'6" backup quarterback who actually stole the show and gave the Birds coaching staff a very tricky dilemma going forward. Plus, a new wide receiver emerged last night to potentially steal a roster spot. James Bradberry does what James Bradberry does best, and my concern for Nolan Smith, it's growing just a little. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. The Eagles' second preseason game started exactly the same as last week, but then they threw us some very interesting wrenches into what turned out to be a fantastic fourth quarter comeback by newly crowned backup quarterback hero, Tanner McKee. When I say the exact same as last week, how about the exact same pregame rain to basically confirm the fact the offensive starters would yet again not play in the preseason? In fact, Jalen Hurts and the rest of the entire starting offense, they didn't even dress for warm-ups, which they at least did versus the Ravens. Oh, and that's Mekhi Becton right there, who obviously is not dressed either. Can anyone say the right guard battle is officially over? Now, I'll be honest, I don't love not playing the starters at all during the preseason. And last night, with them not playing, all but guarantees it. I get protecting them, I get wanting to be safe. I understand joint practices are fantastic, but you got to give this brand new offense at least a couple of runs, in my opinion. I still remember last year's opener versus the same Patriots we saw last night, and the Eagles didn't look their best. Was it rust? Maybe not. Did they win? Sure. You tell me down below, though, should the Birds' offensive starters at least played one series? Now, still, as expected post-game, head coach Nick Sirianni argued that Tuesday's joint practices did count as reps for the ones and gave a very Sirianni, rambling, non-committal answer to the question of if we'll see the starters going forward.
And we'll see what happens next week as far as our plan to play anybody. But, again, if you think about when you play it, like last week, I'm not even going to get into all that, but like I always will consider everything's always on the table. And each year is a different year.
Now again, like last week, the defensive starters, at least most of them played, minus every single starting defensive lineman except for Bryce Huff, who actually suited up and then led the team with 4 tackles on his first 2 drives. After the game, the Birds' new pass rusher explained that coming from a full-on attack front to a new scheme, having a chance to see a little more and be aware of a little more, it helps getting those extra reps in a live game. With the speed of the game, I appreciate those extra reps. See, getting extra reps in a brand new system, it's not the worst thing in the world. Now, really quickly, today's show is brought to you guys by Autograph, the app that carries the best content, tickets, and gear to help you fan to your full potential. Now, we all know being a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles is a full-time job, so Autograph does the heavy lifting for you. From tickets to big matchups, like, let's say, Eagles versus Falcons, Monday Night Football, kind of a big deal, obviously to breaking news. The app has curated content for fans of all things Eagles. All the podcast articles and game predictions you could ever want, and yes, the Thomas Mott Show. They also have this new replay feature that lets you get all the day's news, like everything happening with the Eagles, but without the noise exactly when you need it to start your day. Just use the code MOTT to download the app for free on both the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store today. Now, I also thought that Zack Baun had a pretty good night. He looked way more comfortable in the starting defensive rotation versus where he was in the first game versus the Ravens, and overall, I think the almost starting defense played pretty well. Gave up a few decent plays to the Patriots ones during a short field situation following a bad Kenny Pickett drive. More on that later. You also need to give credit to Avonte Maddox filling in at safety and jumping this route for a huge red zone interception. How about Avonte Maddox making big plays? Avonte Maddox looking comfortable at safety after virtually not playing nickel at all during training camp is a good sign for the Eagles' depth, right? We all keep talking about how if CJ goes down, if, Reed Blankenship goes down, where's the depth at safety? And I think Avonte Maddox might be the key to at least giving the Eagles a little bit of calm behind the 2 starters. Although as for James Bradberry, well, he had a bad week of joint practices and then of course had a very bad tackling night in last night's game. It's so crazy that he's probably going to make the team and get paid what he currently has in his contract, but this right here is not a good look for the new safety. Now the next quarter and a half was all about Kenny Pickett, his time to actually shine in what turned out to be a very cloudy evening for the backup quarterback. He had literally zero juice, just like hanging in the pocket way too long, taking a bunch of sacks, and overall getting his biggest completion on this screen pass to Will Shipley. Like, sure, again, Pickett was pressured a lot, that's fair, but McKee played with the exact same offensive line later, and as we'll see, looked way, way better. Still, though, as expected, Sirianni was very quick to defend his former first-round draft pick in his post-game presser.
Kenny was 11 to 13. Ball only hit the ground twice, but he had some pressure on him. Tanner played well. I think he was 15 to 19 today, but made some good throws. I thought Will did some good things. I'm happy they're all on the roster right now, and I really am. That's a good room, and they're all helping Jalen. They're all helping each other, and I love that. So it really is a good room. And like I said, the things that kind of stalled some of the drives in the first half today was some of the pressures that we got. and we didn't run it great in that area either for some different reasons that we'll obviously look at and why. So no, I thought they both played a solid game tonight. It just some of the pressure that was on Kenny happened in that first half.
Now look, I'm going to show you Tanner McKee played way better. Like all of Eagles Twitter, all of Eagles Nation saw what I saw. We all can agree. But I also can give you guys the truth and say they're not going to abandon Kenny Pickett anytime soon. Like the Eagles gave up a third-round draft pick for him. That's a lot to give up for a quarterback you demote after 2 preseason starts. Now again, personally, don't get me wrong, like I would do it. I think the Birds front office should do it, but they're probably not ready to accept defeat this early. Oh, and by the way, since we are going to argue backup quarterbacks during the show, and that person is probably just going to wear a hat and hold a clipboard during the season, let's give away this Kelly Green white hat to one subscriber who goes below and of course drops a thumbs up and also comments backup. I'll pick one of you guys on a show later on, probably early next week. Got to get to 1,000 likes on the show today. I think we can do it. If you want a hat, sub, comment, and let me know. Like I said, the Birds are not going to give up on Kenny Pickett anytime soon. I mean, even Eagles insider Dave Spadaro said during the game last night, quote, "I know there's conversation about Tanner McKee after 2 great preseasons, but the Eagles really like Kenny Pickett. They view this as a team with 3 quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett is number 2. Which, again, I don't really know. Maybe having 24 total starts in Pittsburgh over 2 seasons and only throwing 13 interceptions was kind of the dead giveaway. He's not that good. But to his credit, he seemed confident and at least had some good answers in his postgame presser.
It was good. I know we were rotating a lot of guys tonight too, so we got to play with a bunch of different, people, a bunch of different groups were in there. Continuing to work the operation. I don't think we were as clean as we would like to be. I think we were probably better and smoother at that point in the first game. So that's something this week that we're definitely going to have to iron out for the third game.
Is there anyone in the comment section who wants to defend Kenny Pickett and say he's better right now than Tanner McKee? I'm curious. I'll give you the opportunity. Go down below and let me know. Now, the Eagle backups did get to go against the number 3 overall draft pick in Drake Maye, and it's not a Patriot show, but I thought he looked pretty good. Played well, was very comfortable, had some nice throws, and of course scored the game's first touchdown late in the first half. Oh, and by the way, in that first half, Steen went down with an ankle injury, and he had to be carted to the locker room. There's been no update as of filming this morning, but not a good sign for the second-year guard, who was already dealing with said ankle injury. Now, the second half was Tanner McKee time, and almost instantly, like literally his first throw, the offense started to roll. I mean, look at this. Perfect pass to E.J. Jenkins on the sideline. That was a work of art. Although, can we please not run the tush-push with Tanner McKee ever again? Like, can we just make that a ground rule if he has to play during the regular season? Now, later on, how about this back show thrower to Joseph Ngata, who had an absolutely incredible night, especially later on in the fourth quarter. He was easily the Birds' best receiver all night long. And it wasn't just me excited. How about A.J. Brown celebrating on the sideline following a big Ngata catch? And AJ wasn't done praising the second-year wide receiver, as apparently, as he walked to the bus after the game, he called over to a few reporters and said Joseph Ngata was the absolute star. 5 catches, 88 yards, that's a really good night for the undrafted wide receiver. Throw in the fact that we learned pregame that Johnny Wilson suffered a concussion during the Patriots joint practice day, so Ngata really was the next best option, had the opportunity in front of him, and boy, did he absolutely show out. I know we still think the Eagles should probably add a receiver, just, if you can get a trade, you can sign somebody, we wouldn't say no. But Johnny Wilson, when healthy, I think he's done some good things in the preseason. And if this is the Joseph Ngata we've been getting the past couple of weeks, I think he has a real high chance to make the roster. And of course, the practice squad if he doesn't get that far. Now, the Eagles, for some reason, took McKee out late in the third quarter and played Will Grier for a few series, and I guess that makes sense, and he played well. A nice throw and catch here from Grier to Jenkins, but then, in kind of confusing fashion, they brought McKee back in the game after sitting him with 7 minutes to go, and he immediately hit Ngata, what do you know, for a big game. Although apparently, bringing McKee back in after sitting him was always a part of the plan, according to the big QB.
Not 100% sure. Coach just told us that was going to be the game plan at the beginning of the game, and I was like, okay. Like, they did a good job communicating with it, and we roll with the punches. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was just to give everybody an equal opportunity, so it wasn't like at the end of the game if it was a 4-minute, 2-minute, no matter what it was. But I was just ready to roll whenever they call my name.
Now, Tanner would lead the Eagles right down the field and punch it in for the Birds' first touchdown, and then a perfectly designed Kellen Moore 2-pointer to Anais Smith, of all people, would put Philadelphia in the lead, and the legend of Tanner McKee was officially off and running. Oh, and then just like last week's game, the Birds would recover a bad snap fumble under 2 minutes and seal the game for another W. I just can't get over how poised Tanner McKee was last night. Like, side by side, compared to Kenny Pickett, he was just really leagues better all night long. And again, I don't think they're just going to give up on Kenny Pickett yet. The writing is definitely on the wall. And big if, the Birds had to use a backup in a regular season game, the entire fan base would be probably pretty upset if number 16 wasn't the choice. Still, though, the young quarterback, he handled the tough questions well, especially about Pickett and the growing QB2 battle during his press conference.
That's not my decision. I wish it was. But I'm just ready to go out and play whenever they call my name.
Were you surprised when they traded for Kenny?
Was I surprised? Howie did a great job of communicating. I think they do a really good job of communicating. They told me that they were going to bring in another quarterback, and we were going to compete. And so that was the message that I got. And Kenny's been a great teammate, and we're going to continue to compete for probably the whole year.
Now, in non-quarterback notable players, I thought Nakobe Dean was, again, pretty good last night after reportedly not having the best of training camp. And Jeremiah Trotter Jr., not as good as last week, missed a couple of tackles, but had some nice plays, and I think continues to show that he is the linebacker of the future. I do, though, have some growing fears about Nolan Smith. Like, sure, here's another sack, that's fine. Much like last week's preseason game, it came late in the second half against third stringers. Nolan Smith is a first-round draft pick who should be getting starting reps. Why is he playing in the second half of a preseason game, if not for the fact that the Eagles are saying he's not really ready to start? Which, again, sure, that's fine. I mean, take your time, but still, 30th overall draft pick. If he doesn't do anything this year, going into year 3, the B word might start to actually come out, which we don't want to do just yet, but I think Nolan Smith playing in the second half is not a good sign for him. Overall, it's a preseason game. There's only so much you can take from it, right? Backups are playing. It's a very vanilla offense. Would Kenny Pickett look better in a Kellen Moore offense with A.J. Brown, Avonte Smith? What about Tanner McKee, though, in that argument? Doesn't really make sense. But overall, again, Eagles did some nice things last night, and we're seeing enough positives to go, this is still a great football team that does have some depth. Joseph Ngata is a great example of that. I'm excited to see what he can do going forward, both in training camp this week and also, of course, in their final preseason game next Saturday versus the Minnesota Vikings. Plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks. Comment down below, back up, see who wins that hat on Monday's show. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.